How do you manifest your desires with imagination? That's what I want to talk about today, because today I want to provide you with practical tips that are based on the teachings of Neville Goddard, how you can use your imagination and how you can use it in a way that it naturally manifests your deepest and strongest desires. And as always, I prepared a few quotes for you directly from Neville Goddard, and I then want to share my own opinion with you, and I also want to share practical tips with you, very practical manifestation techniques that you can use in order to make use of these quotes, in order to not just understand these concepts on a logical level, but to also understand them in a practical context. And the first thing that Neville Goddard says about imagination is the following. Only his imagination, man's imagination, is the man himself. No man has too little imagination, but few men have disciplined their imagination. And of course, if you are a woman listening to this, most of my listeners and most of my coaching clients are women, then always remember the time where this was published. So even though Neville Goddard is talking about man's imagination is the man himself, you could also translate it into woman's imagination is the woman herself. And that no woman has too little imagination, but few women have disciplined their imagination. It's the same no matter what gender you are. But the most important realization when it comes to this quote is that few people have disciplined their imagination. And this is something that I often tell you, and it's also something that so many of my coaching clients are sick and tired of hearing. I think everyone who follows the teachings of Dr. Joe Dispenza is sick and tired of hearing about space in space. And when it comes to me, everyone who's listening to the Affirmation to Manifestation podcast or here to the Neville Goddard Decoded podcast is sick and tired of me saying consistency, 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 the typical German way. So yes, you might be sick and tired of that, but I still say it all the time in the same way as Dr. Joe Dispenza says the space all the time, because it's important to realize that these things are important. In the same way as the space is important, the consistency, or let's say consistency without the is important. So yes, being consistent when it comes to your manifestation practices. And I also believe that nobody has no imagination. Nobody can't imagine. Nobody has some kind of limitation where they can't imagine anything, or they can't visualize, they can't daydream, even if you don't see the clear pictures, but you visualize by simply immersing yourself in the feeling, by immersing yourself in what it would feel like to have what you want. I believe everybody has this capability, this ability. Everybody has it, but because we're not practicing it and we often give up way too fast, that's why nothing happens. If you, for example, invest in the 11 Days to Manifestation Mastery program, which you can do by going to affirmationtomanifestation.com/mastery, and you then have a look at, I think it's module 9, but I'm not quite sure. It could be module 7 or 6 or 5, I don't know. But in one of the modules, and by the way, each of the modules contains hypnosis, practical exercises, and detailed lectures. But in one of the modules, I teach you the power of visualization and how you can then combine visualization and meditation into a powerful manifestation technique, which is called visual meditation. And this is also the number one technique that I use and that I also used in the past to manifest my physical healing, to manifest large sums of money. More money than a couple of years I could possibly imagine, and a fulfilling relationship. And if you then invest in the 11 Days to Manifestation Mastery program, and you then listen to this module, and you then listen to the audio file with the exercises, and you then do it once, or you don't do it at all, or you do it 2 times, and then you say, oh, I can't see anything, oh, I'm giving up, oh, I just don't have what it takes to imagine, oh, Neville Goddard always talks about the imaginary act, but I just can't do it, I'm not destined to manifest my dreams. If you do that, as South Park described Prince Harry's book, if you go down this road, then, well, nothing will happen. But if you listen to Neville Goddard's quote that I just shared with you, and you internalize it, where he says no man has too little imagination, but few men have disciplined their imagination, and you say, hey, I'm going to make a conscious decision right now. I'm going to make a strong and powerful decision with such a clear intention, as Joe Dispenza always says. But yeah, with a clear intention that you will develop this discipline. You do it every day. That's why I always say, the moment I had my first symptoms with my health issue, and until this day, I never skipped a day. I always did my visualization meditation, which is exactly what you learn in this one module in my 11 Days to Manifestation Mastery program. I never skipped a day. Even when I was waking up from my surgery and I was in so much pain, I still did it for 5 minutes. I couldn't do it longer because I was in so much pain and discomfort, but I still did it. And this discipline helped me to manifest incredible things in my life. And always remember, and this is something that I want to share with you now again with a quote from Neville Goddard, that imagination is indestructible. And here's what Neville says: imagination is itself indestructible. Therein lies the horror of its misuse. Daily we pass some stranger on the street and observe him muttering to himself, carrying on an imaginary argument with one not present. He is arguing with vehemence, with fear, or with hatred, not realizing that he is setting in motion by his imagination an unpleasant event, which he will presently encounter. I mean, these words, whoa, I get goosebumps by reading these words, and that's why I want to read them again to you, and I want you to really carefully listen to these words. Think about the meaning behind them and the power of your imagination and what happens if you don't train your imagination, if you don't develop the discipline to guide your imagination, because we are always imagining, if you want it or not, guided or unguided, deliberate or not, but you want to become a deliberate creator, and that's why you have to realize that, as Neville Goddard says it, imagination is itself indestructible. And think about the next sentence from that quote. Therein lies the horror of its misuse. How could you possibly misuse it? You can use imagination by imagining the future that you want, by diving deep into the imaginary act, into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. But you can also misuse it by imagining horror, imagining sadness, imagining terror, and then, as Neville Goddard says in this quote, muttering to himself, carrying on an imaginary argument with one not present. He is arguing with vehemence, with fear or with hatred, not realizing that he is setting in motion by his imagination an unpleasant event which he will presently encounter. Wow. This quote really, now that I'm reading it to you again, and now that I'm talking about it, I still have goosebumps from it. I have goosebumps because you need to avoid this trap. You want to discipline your imagination. You want to discipline your power, and it is your power. You are a deliberate creator. At least if you create deliberately, otherwise you're a random creator. And then when you're a random creator and you're not careful and you don't discipline your imagination, it's so easy to get influenced by the news. It's so easy to get influenced by your family member who's always talking about sickness and always talking about, oh, the terrible things in this world and the economy and oh my God, oh, my back is hurting and oh, and to get influenced by, which also in a lot of aspects is focused on negative energy. I mean, the news, most movies are all about death, about killing. I mean, for example, since I've embarked on a spiritual journey, I never see action movies or a lot of action movies in the same way as I saw them before my spiritual awakening. Before I was like, oh yeah, oh amazing, yeah, kill another 100 people. It was just normal because that's what we as a society are conditioned to consider normal. I mean, if you really think about it for a moment, just for a moment, that for us it's the most normal thing. It's an entertainment. It's an entertainment to watch hundreds of people getting killed on a movie screen. That for us in our society, in that consciousness, is entertainment. It's crazy when you really think about it, or maybe I'm just the only one who thinks it's crazy, I don't know. But I would never watch the same movies again that I watched years ago. Why? because I'm more conscious. I'm more conscious about frequency. I'm more conscious about my imagination. And that's why also Dr. Joe Dispenza in the very first week-long advanced retreat said something that stuck with me and that I also mentioned multiple times on the Affirmation to Manifestation podcast. Maybe I also already mentioned it here on the Neville Goddard Decoded podcast, and that's don't watch what you don't want to live. When Dr. Joe Dispenza said these words, something inside of me shifted. Something inside of me changed. I was like, wow, I never thought about it like that. I never thought about it like that. And this also has to do with the misuse of your imagination, because we often imagine things or we reimagine them when we see something, when we consume something, and especially when you're watching TV. I mean, there's been a lot of scientific studies about that. You don't even have to address it from a spiritual angle, but simply from a scientific angle, that we are in a trance-like state. Just like when you book a hypnosis session with me, you are often in the same trance-like state when you're watching TV. And if you then watch the news, you watch horror movies, you watch action movies, you watch death and killing, that's what your imagination gets fed with. And by doing that, your imagination gets fatter and fatter and fatter with all that stuff that you don't really want to imagine, but because it's so ingrained in your subconscious mind, that's what comes up when you then try to imagine or when you dream. I mean, so many of my coaching clients, for example, told me that once they stopped consuming all that BS that we usually consume in our everyday life without even thinking about it, that their dreams changed completely. Suddenly they stopped having nightmares and they had beautiful dreams because they consumed beautiful things. It's really that simple. And the same is true for you when it comes to your imagination. Always remember, every day you could misuse your imagination, and our external world often forces you in a sense, or tries to force you. You can still resist it, but tries to force you to misuse your imagination. And that's why you have to be stronger. You have to break away from fear, break away from hatred, and then imagine pleasant things. Imagine the future that you want to live. Imagine how it would feel like to live that future. And then you can manifest your desires with imagination. And if you want to work with me on imagining, on visualizing, on manifesting, then you can go to affirmationtomanifestation.com/coaching, or you can simply click on the second link in the description and find out more about the different coaching sessions I offer. And there you can also find out more about my brand new 6-week coaching program, the Abundance Reality Shift Program, that you can also, like I said, find out more about by going to affirmationtomanifestation.com/coaching or by going to affirmationtomanifestation.com/abundance. And if you enjoyed watching this video, please send out some love to the YouTube universe by giving this video a big thumbs up. And I would also appreciate it if you would leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know what you think about my video. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and to click on the notification bell so that you get notified whenever I release a new video for you.